Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jay here. Welcome back to yet another episode of SoundStage Take 2. Now, today we have the Triangle Borea 8 speakers for review. Now, this is my second take on it. The original review was written by Diego on September 1st on soundstageaccess.com. So you can click on the link below this video to read that review, or you can go to soundstageaccess.com to read it. Now, I suggest you have a read on that review if you want to know the nitty-bitty details. But in this video, I'm going to give you my take on the speakers because I've reviewed the Triangle Borea 3 speakers, also the Triangle Borea 2 speakers, which is the smaller bookshelf versions of the speaker. So the Triangle Borea 8 speakers here is using 6.5-inch mid-range driver, which is paper cone based, which is a material borrowed from the Spirit Easy line and is also used in their smaller Borea 3 and Borea 2 speakers. It's also using two 6.5-inch woofers, which are made of fiberglass. The tweeter is a 1-inch silk dome tweeter, which also has a diffusing face plug. And it has a port in the front. So, this speaker is very reminiscent of the Triangle Borea or the BR03 or the BR02 speakers that I reviewed in the past. And those were fantastic speakers. Tonally and also the capability of those speakers were fantastic. How those small bookshelf speakers or stand mount speakers can deliver that kind of bass authority and tonal balance was absolutely incredible for the price. And those obviously did fantastic in the price range given. Now this speaker is a Floorstander and it's priced at $13.99 USD, so $1,400 US dollars. So how does it perform in that kind of price category? Well, again, the paper mid-range woofer is very, very tonally excellent, just like the bookshelf speakers. There's a lot of similarities between the bookshelf speaker and this speaker in terms of its tonal characteristic in the mid-range and what the paper woofer brings to the table. Now, when it comes to the bass, however, the bass output capability is much more authoritative, goes down lower, more grippy, more extension, more punchy, just more authority in the bottom end that just smacks your chest. So this gives you more of a full body experience that was not 100% on the stand mount speakers. Now, stand mount speakers are no joke. They produce extremely good bass, especially considering the size of the speakers and considering that they're stand mount speakers. But these speakers are a different story. These really punch, really go down deep and shake the room. So even comparing it to Floorstanders in this price range, it has really tremendous amount of bass output and control at the same time that shakes your room and does what a good Floorstander should be doing in the bass region. Now, one thing though, this speaker is more for mid to, I would say, large size rooms, because if you put this in a small room and too close to the wall, you start to get bloated bass, and you also get a little bit too much bass that kind of makes you sick at times. So my suggestion is to use this speaker in a mid to large size rooms. And for that, this speaker is excellent with great amount of bass output, authority. If you're a bass head, this is a great speaker for that. So even in a blind test, you would definitely be able to tell that this is a Floorstander. It has bass authority, it has scale that a Floorstander should have. Now, when it comes to the mid-range, like I said, is very similar to the Borea 3 and the Borea 2 speakers. The only difference here is that it is reinforced by good bass response. So the voices seem to have more gut to the sound, more authority, and it comes out more naturally and with more dynamic power and micro detail. Now, when it comes to the high frequency is just as extended as the Borea 3 and the Borea 2 speakers. However, I find that the Borea 2 speakers have a little bit more refined in the high frequency, just maybe perhaps because it's a bookshelf design. But the Floorstander version here is not falling that much short in that regard. It has really good detail, resolution, and extension in the price range given. And it has plenty of excitement in the top end to tap your feet and enjoy the music. Now, I will consider this speaker more bottom-up speaker, considering that it has really good weight and bass authority in the bottom. But it doesn't fall short in terms of the excitement on the top end either. So that's basically the sound of this speaker. It does have a warm, smooth characteristic to it, but at the same time, it's not overly warm or overly gushous or dark sounding in my opinion. Now, comparing it to something like the Tecton lower speakers, which retails for about $1,000, the Tecton lower speakers are more resolving the top frequency. It's more linear in the extension in the bass region, while this speaker, the Borea 8 speakers from Triangle, seems to have more fuller bass, a little bit, for the lack of better words, exaggerated bass. So if you are someone who really likes to have bass and really good thump, then this speaker really does that and hits you in the chest like a hammer. And like I said, the bass is not quite linear, so it does seem to have a little bit more emphasis around 100 to 200 hertz. Now, when I did measure this speaker in my space, just for my reference, I found that it didn't go all the way down to 20 hertz, which was very surprising to me because what was perceived was this authoritative bass that really told me that this is going down really low, like 20 hertz and below, room shaking. But in this case, it's just exaggerated bass and it's a little bit artificial, for the lack of better words again. But at the same time, it's just as enjoyable as any speaker that's full range. Now, one thing I'll point out here in terms of its caveat compared to something like the Tecton lower is that the bass is a tad bit slower in comparison to something like the Tecton lower that has a little bit more linear bass response. But other than that, the SoundStage, the width, the imaging capability is all on par. And with imaging, I'll give a little bit of edge to the Tecton lower. It has slightly better imaging, but again, both excellent in that regard. But it's also a trade-off because the Triangle Borea 8 speakers here have bigger scale and sense of scale because of its pure output capability. Now, both of these speakers are excellent speakers and they are both efficient. The Triangle Borea 8 speakers here are 92 dB in sensitivity, which is pretty much sensitive for all equipment matching. So I tried it with tubes, I tried it with integrated amplifiers, and it seems like the Triangles really do like power even though it is sensitive. Yes, anything can really power it, but at the same time, I found great success with transistor amplifiers that outputted 200 watts or more, like the Kinky Studio XM1 Plus that I will be reviewing soon on SoundStage Take 2. It was overall more balanced sound and something that I think that people will enjoy more if they're into a more balanced sound signature. Whereas matching it with something like the Wilsonton R8, which is a cheaper component than the Kinky Studio, but it's tube-based integrated amplifier, gave a little bit more warmth and life to the sound that was more exciting, yet warmer sounding and smoother. So a little bit of coloration there. That's, I think, a lot of people will like more if they're into a little bit more tube characteristic, if they're into more sound staging and atmospheric 3D sound instead of pinpointing each individual elements in the music. And this speaker is pretty forgiving to the source of the music, so if the recording was not recorded so well, then this speaker, because of its bass response and because of its overall warm and really nice tonal characteristic, it's going to allow you to play the music and enjoy it regardless of the recording quality. But that's not without being said that if you play higher recording quality, then you will be rewarded when you play out of these speakers. Now, in terms of placement, I found that these speakers really need some space from the wall behind the speakers. If you put them too close to the wall, like I said before, it may become too bloated or too overwhelmed with the bass response. So my rule of thumb is to have these 4 foot or 3 foot from the back wall, and that gives you a very good balance between the bass, mid-range, and treble, in my opinion, at least in my space. And another thing to consider is the listening volume. If you listen to these at very low volume, there's adequate bass, but to get a full potential out of these speakers, you really have to play mid to high level volumes to really get that bass response going, and you need to pump in some power into these speakers, in my opinion. And I found that these speakers are not only good for music, but also for home theater. These are excellent speakers for home theater. They're crisp, they have really good articulation, especially for the money. And the bass response is so full, and that's something that's required for an enjoyable home theater experience, in my opinion. So even without a subwoofer, these go very low and is very good with the bass response, very good output. But of course, you can also add a subwoofer to make that even more appealing if you wish to for your home theater. Now, that's pretty much it from me. Thank you for watching. And if you liked this video and if you found this video helpful, click that thumbs up button and also consider subscribing to this channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.